chapter 1, verse 1, he even has James, the servant of God of Yahushua HaMashiach, to the 12 tribes scattered abroad. So this is James writing to the 12 tribes. Now he's rebuking other Israelites, other Jews in synagogues. It has nothing to do with Christian church. He's talking about his own people. He's rebuking his own people. And he says, don't hold one over the other. You know, don't have favor with people with money. You know, treat everybody the same. Everybody's common. Everybody's equal. That's very important, right? So we even see in James 2, you know, I thought that James, in ASB, it actually uses the word synagogue there. So, you know, it's like, why are we changing words now? It started getting kind of confusing because it's like, it's a synagogue, it's an assembly, it's a congregation, and this done by design.
Right.
What was happening in the synagogues? This is very interesting because I never really thought about what all was going on in synagogues. Because even in the Capernaum, the one that we showed earlier, talks about how Yahushua went into the synagogue, and the people that was hearing him, they were astonished by what he's saying. So they've been hearing all these Jewish teachers come, and he comes, they're like, oh wow, that's some great teaching. Never heard that before. Like, wait a minute, he's talking the same stuff, so something that must have a different kind of doctrine, right? And he said, in the synagogue, an unclean spirit was in there. In the synagogue. Whoa. You know, made me think, I'm like, whoa, this is totally different now. I'm like, whoa, the spirit is in the synagogue. Said, let us alone, the spirit said. Wow, they were bold too. What have you to do with thee, thou Yahushua of Nazareth? Art thou come to destroy us? And he basically said, be quiet, you know, don't say anything, it's not time, hold that peace come out of him. And it came out, and the people were like, what is this thing? What just happened?
Yeah.
What is doctrine is this? So none of this stuff was going on before then? All the healings and stuff that we hear, none of this, you know, prophets and nothing came by one day and did something. Like, this is the first time they ever seen any of this. They're like, wow. You know? So what, like, they didn't ask what kind of doctrine is this? Like, wait a minute, they didn't heal nobody? You didn't have Elijah healing people in the Old Testament? You never even know about that kind of... They were like surprised. So what changed during this time? So that's why it's very important to look at history. And it talks about also in Mark 3, 1 through 6, it talks about how he entered in a synagogue and there was a man with a withered hand. And basically they were looking at him trying like, you gonna heal this man on the Sabbath? And he was like, yeah, basically he got mad at them. He was like, he looked around about them with anger. Yeah. So he's mad at these people in the synagogue, being grieved with the hardness of their heart. And he said unto him, stretch forth their hand. And the Pharisees later on talks about, went forth straightway, took counsel with the Herodians. That's important, because Herod was what? The Edomite. Yeah. So why are these people teaming up with the Edomite? Herodians. And why are the Pharisees going to use their position as Herodians to go against Yahushua? That's very important to start understanding these groups and the history of these groups and where they come from, because it's very important. And the other thing that was kind of interesting was like, this man is with a withered hand, so there was no healing being done in the synagogues. Right? This is supposed to be the house of Yahuwah. There's no healing going on in the house of Yahuwah. The man's coming with a withered hand, he comes up and heals. Interesting. Yeah. Alright, so in 85 AD, the Nazarenes were kicked out of the synagogues and they were persecuted in Jews. So this is like right after Yahushua passed away. He ascended, was resurrected, ascended. And then in 85 AD, the synagogues start turning on the people who were Nazarenes, or the ones that actually followed Yahushua. And it talks about, you know, the synagogues of libertines. Anytime he uses his name, I always say research it, because he uses his name for a reason, right? There's a reason why they put that name. I didn't research this one, so maybe y'all can tell me, right? Then, I kind of went ahead, but I even got some of the words like hell in Greeks. But, you know, when you start talking about the different names of Greek, you might not get to that today. But actually, if you look at the word Grecian in the Old Testament, what do you think of? Greek. Right, Greek. When you look at the Grecian in the New Testament, you know what that means? A Jewish person who basically been exposed to the Greek culture. Hellenized. It's totally different, right? But when you read it in English, you're just going through Grecian, Greek, you're like, oh, wait a minute, you're just thinking that these are, no, not always. They're not always Gentiles. Gentile in the form that we understand as a Greek person. Sometimes it's actually an Israelite who's been converted to the culture around them, like we are in America, right? Yeah, like us. So it also shows that the Greeks were in the synagogues, right? So these are actually the word Greek with Helen is actually Gentile. That's actually a Gentile word. Talking about the people of the Greek culture, not actually the Israelites who conformed. But then it says that later on that Paul talks about how he was beating people when he was still with the Pharisees. I used to beat people in the synagogues. I hated, these other brothers and sisters because they were all Israelites, right? So he was talking about how he was there with Stephen, and Stephen was actually he was one of the people that was there when he was basically going at him. They couldn't do nothing about what he was saying. So that shows you how powerful he had to be for Paul to be there and not be able to rebuke him. None of them was able to rebuke him. They had to get mad and kill him. That's all the way they had to deal with him. So what does a synagogue sound to you like, right? So we're talking about high respect for the rich, right? We're talking about people dressed up in expensive clothes. We talk about no healing taking place, even though it's a religious place, right? Evil and unclean spirits enter into the place on a regular basis, and the people even thought it was supposed, thought it was a holy place. People are beaten down. We talk about spiritually beat down. We talked about, right? They'll beat down physically, but sometimes in some of our churches, people, if you ask a question, like we say, you beat down. Like you can't ask a question, or removed if they have any hard questions they cannot ask, and they are teaching a different doctrine than what's in the Bible speaks. So that was in the synagogue. That's the Hebrew, the Israelites doing this, So now we can easily see how that can easily come into the present day churches as well, right? And when we talk about future synagogues, so we all know this scripture, the Jews, people who say they're Jews are not, but are the synagogues of Satan, right? We know we hear that in 2 times, and it's very interesting when you hear about the churches of Smyrna and Philadelphia. I think Smyrna is actually in Turkey. Right. So, this is a Turkish synagogue, but, there's showing that there's a presence of some people that shouldn't be there, that's in synagogues, that's going to be persecuting other people who are the people, right? Even in these areas. Makes you interested to know, like, who's in that area? Maybe you go find out people, right? That's in Turkey. All right, so when we're talking about the churches, they went to house churches. So this is one of the oldest churches in 70 AD. It's under a church called St. George Church, but this was actually a cave under the church. And they call it, when we talk about Pella, you ever heard of Pella? Okay, no? So when we talk about, I might come to it later, but anyway, I'll go ahead and go over it now. So in Luke 21, it actually talks about the, disciples asking Yahushua what's going to happen in the last days. So he then talks about, all the moon and the star, all this stuff is going to happen. And then he said at one time, he says that when you see the army encamped around Jerusalem, that this is a sign. He said, don't, come off your house, run out, get out of there. Yeah. And actually in history, which we'll go over probably next time, there's some people that actually did that. And that event actually happened when they surrounded Jerusalem. And the Romans were going to destroy the temple in 70 AD. And there were some people who actually left and went to Pella. Yeah. So when you look up Pella, there's a lot of, I think we'll put something out there on the Hebrew, the Raleigh Hebrew group one time about Pella and stuff. So that's what the situation was talking about. And these were people who were called the Nazarenes by name. They called them the Nazarenes and went to Pella. So a lot different than when we hear, about the Christian church versus the Nazarenes. Right. So that's like the underground cave door. This is supposed to be like seats. You can't really see it well, but that's like the seats in the cave that they were hiding out. 230 AD, oldest church. That's on top of the cave. In 230, they built a church called St. George. And on the floor, that's where they have the 70 beloved by God and divine, talking about the Nazarenes that came and fled from Jerusalem to Pella. So they have a church there. And then in 325, remember that date, right? What happened around that? Constantine. We start getting cathedrals. This is the oldest cathedral right around 325, around the Council of Nicaea was what? 325. Start getting cathedrals. That's considered the oldest in Christendom only by a year. And then this is the Church of Nativity in Bethlehem. And they claim this is the spot where Yahushua was born, but probably it was not. So this is, I don't know if y'all know about Richard Rivas. Probably not. Richard Rivas, he's European, well, he's American, white American, but he talks about like, we need to keep the commandments. He said all this, European Roman is all wrong. Don't follow it. And he also goes like, I guess he has, y'all know about Ron Wyatt, one who discovered like Noah's Ark and the dead, the Red Sea crossing. He found all these different places. So basically when he died, he passed it over to Richard Grievous, who's now over the museum in Tennessee. I want to go there to see because they say get all this stuff from, I want to go. But he went here and he said, this is not the place. This is from the Europeans and, about European culture. So, it's one thing for us to go say, oh, that's not the place. But when people that's over archaeological digs and sites and museums say that's not the place, then you need to start listening a little closer, right? Especially talking about their own culture. This is them. He doesn't benefit from that. We benefit from destroying this. He doesn't benefit at all. Right. Because when you actually look, they said this is the spot that Yahushua was born. Now, what does that look like to you, to me? I'm glad I had to go into that. Y'all, it's easy, right?
So I said supposedly.
I like these adjectives. Probably, supposedly. Birth sign of Yahushua in the church. And then we look at the Church of the Holy Scripture. It says that 335 AD in the old city of Jerusalem. So they say that this is where Yahushua was crucified. I'm just copying and pasting. So if you see Jesus, that's their talk. So, and it says this is the place where they claim that he was buried, right? And basically in the 4th century, when this church was first being built, or cathedral, they put it in a spot where the temple of Aphrodite was previously. And you'll see why that's important as well. I don't know if we're going to get to it this time. But the temple was torn down, and that's supposed to be the holiest church in the Christian world now. So, the place where he died, right? And if you look inside of it, what do we see? Haven't we seen some of these pictures before? You see why it's important to know some of this artwork and what is actually meaning around it? Wow. And this is the top. What does that look like? The sun. What is above his head? The sun. Why is that in where he's supposed to be? Something's wrong. Something's wrong. Something's wrong. So we can see, how they have him standing. We know that's not him. Why? If they were connected to the culture, if they actually were there to crucify Yahushua, right? Wouldn't they know what they look like? Yeah. It's not different. Like, it's different if you're American, you go over there, right? But these are the people that killed him. Interesting. So, and in 333 AD, St. Peter's Basilica, this is supposed to be where John was buried on top of the Vatican City in Rome. One of the world's most holiest locations. I guess we got a lot of those in the Catholic religion. Michelangelo, and I don't know who Bernini is, but they actually had a lot of the artistic type of paintings and stuff they did in there. They claim that was built on St. Peter's body tomb, and the 15th century went under major renovations. So just looking at that, what do you see what's wrong with this? An obelisk. I always wonder, why is that in a holy, supposedly Christian place? If y'all don't know what the obelisk is, I'm trying to see how many young ears we got. But so basically, the obelisk is from Egypt, and basically it was a guy that died, got his body all cut up, and the wife went and found all pieces but one. I'm gonna leave it there. And so then when we actually look at the other obelisks, where do you know another obelisk? What's another one? See, Washington Monument. Why is that like that? So when we go to Abraham Lincoln Memorial, what's that statue of? Abraham Lincoln. So we go to George Washington Memorial, what's that statue of? That thing. I'm like, what is that about? But he was a big Mason, so there's a big story even to that. But you see, they have them all around the world, and it's actually a symbol, fertility symbol of one of the Egyptian gods, I think Horus or Set or one of them.
Is that the actual Vatican that just got burned?
Oh, the cathedral?
Yeah.
No, that was the Notre Dame. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think they would go crazy if that one burned down, boy. They would go crazy.
I thought that one was the most important one, the one that actually burned.
Another one of the most important sites, right? But yeah, it's strange, they got bones and stuff at the bottom of those things too, right? So we know where the bones come from, right? So I think Benaiah does a great job to tell you where those Gothic temples, how they had the bones that it was burning our people, the Israelites, the Judeans. So under the church, you can see they have this catacomb going on under there, under the church they built on top of. And if you look, all the red are Constantine structures, right? So he had to add to this place. And the light blue is from the 16th century that they added. Everything else was before Constantine. So what do we say was before Constantine? What were the Europeans worshiping?
Wow.
Pagans and all kind of stuff, right? Yeah. So that's interesting, right? That they would put it on top of that. Just like I said, the other one was put on top of Aphrodite place that they cleared out. Yeah. This one was put on top of this. So you also can see where the surviving part of St. Peter. What time do I have to stop? I just want to make sure I don't get my time. So when you actually go underneath, this was that place where it talks about, I was up here. But on one of the earlier pictures, y'all remember seeing this picture before? Oh yeah. The Acropolis. This is where it is. This is in St. Peter's Basilica. And that's a picture of Solus Victus, supposed to be in the imagery of the Messiah. So that's in this place. That's in the place. So you see the other ones with this Pope, but you see the same imagery. This is supposed to be St. Peter's tomb that's underneath. It's supposed to be where his body's at. And this is the old place that catacombs and some of these other gods and goddesses. And that's just a picture so kind of see what it is. I think that's, I don't want to misquote. But these are also some of the pictures from the Constantine era with the thing. So this is in the St. Peter's holiest spot place with the pagan obelisk and everything else going on. And we say that this is Christendom, So this is in 1878. I want to say this was a priest or something, but he said the use of temples and they're dedicated to particular saints and ornaments on occasion with the branches of trees, incense, lamps and candles, votive offerings, and the recovery from illness, holy waters, Salem's, holy days and seasons, the use of calendar processions, blessings on the field, sacerdotal vestments and tonsure, the ring in marriage, turning to the east, an image at a later date, perhaps the ecclesiastical chant, and the Curry Ellison, I don't know what that is, all of pagan origin and sanctified by their adoption into the church. So this is actually supposed to be from a priest. So he's saying all this stuff is coming from paganism. So he talks about the temples and stuff as well. So what is the true temple? You are the temple. Not me, by the hands of man. That is so important to know, right? There's so many scriptures said that he will put his spirit within you, Even he said, Yesher said, destroy this temple in 3 days I'll rise it up. Yeah, your body is the temple of the Holy Ghost which is in you. He says, don't you know that you are not your own? Right. Own yourself. We can't just do what we have to do with this temple, this body of ours. We can't just put tattoos and do anything we want to do. Now, if we did it before coming, that's one thing. We're not supposed to continue to do it, right? Because it's no longer ours.
That's right.
But he says the temple of God of Yah is holy, and you are the temple. You're supposed to be the holiness. You're the temple, walking temples. That's what we are.
That's right.
And then it talks about how we are fitly framed together. All as a whole, we are a temple too. We are a family, a temple. That's why it's so important to be here together. Holy convocations, because he wants to come and rest, ride, and rule within our lives.
That's right.
So we can't just do anything. We say we're the people, but we got to act like the people. Right. We just can't just know we the people. We got to act like the people. Right? And not just act, we got to be the people.
That's right.
So, that's why I should see, sometimes when you look at even the Hebrew community, you see people doing all kind of stuff. Like stop it. We can't do that. We must be the light. How the Gentiles going to come out of their stuff and we still living like a mess.
Right.
There's a lot of stuff. There's a heaven and there's also a Hebrew hell, just like anybody else.
That's right.
So we got to make sure we stay out of that. We can't just do and live any kind of life. And that's what people kind of mock us, right? Because they're like, oh, look, they doing some strange, they're always talking about the camps. But we need to make sure we're in the communities. We make sure we be a light on our jobs. That people are like, oh, wait a minute, there is something different about them. You know, why are they doing all these feast days and being in tents, right? They had a testimony last week about the tents and tabernacles, so I'm going to have to get in mind this week, so pray for it. So it's very important to understand that we are the temple. Wherever we go, that, you know, Yah is supposed to be with us.
Come on. Yeah.
And we supposed to be with him. That's the important part. I'm going to preach, let me pull back. And then the future temple. And I put question marks because, you know, there are some confusion about this, and this is very important to know because we the temple, right?
Yeah.
So in what is it? Ezekiel's temple. There's a temple in Ezekiel, right? And it talks about how they measure the temple and all this type of stuff. So people say there's a future temple. But is it?
Come on.
So when we read in Revelations, he said, him that I overcome, I will make a pillar in the temple of my Yah. And he shall go out, shall go no more out. And I write upon him the name of my Yah and the name of the city of my Elohim, which is New Jerusalem, which cometh down out of heaven from my Elohim, and I will write upon him my new name. So, number one, there's a temple that's coming that says down. Well, it says a temple, I'm sorry. Yeah, well, temple's coming down. Let me put it that way, because I want to get more confused. But then in Revelations 21, he says, in there about the 12 gates, 12 pearls, and he said, I saw no temple.
Come on.
So, that's kind of confusing, right? One says there's going to be a temple, and in the end it says, I saw no temple in the last day. But it says, Yahuwah, Elohim, Almighty, and the Lamb are the temple of. So they're the Lamb. They're the temple.
Yeah.
Right? So when we start looking at some of the scriptures and Revelations, it talks about during the time of judgment, right? I will make them a pillar in the temple of my Yah. That's the one we just read. And we read in Ezekiel, it says, it says, and he shall go no more out. So once you're in there, you're not supposed to come, because now we in there with him, right? So in Ezekiel, it talks about when the priests enter into the holy of holies, the inner court, then they shall not go out of the holy chamber into the outer court, right? But they shall leave their garments in which they ministered, for they are holy. They shall put on other garments, then they may approach that which is for the people. So, you know, when we go to where it talks about Revelation 6, it talks about that there will be some standing before him with white garments. Right? So, you know, and they will be there praising him and serving him. Right? So that's where they're going. But it says that the temple is in where? Heaven. Right? And it says on earth, it says that was in heaven, right? And later on it says in Revelation 11, 1 through 2, it says, but the court which is without the temple leave out and measure it not, for it's given to the right there's a semicolon, right? So he's measuring a temple that's somewhere. That's not saying that's on earth, right? But then he says, for it is given unto the Gentiles, and the holy city shall be treaded on the foot for 2 months. So is that temple on earth, or is that temple in heaven? You know? But there's semicolons and stuff there too, so I don't got an answer for it. I'm just throwing it out there. I'm not the answer man. I remember my old bishop, don't be the answer man. Just throw it out there, throw out truth. And the temple of Yah was open in heaven. Tells you where the temple was, where? In heaven, right? Seen in his temple the Ark of the Testament. So, you know, people talking about the Ark is missing, but you see one in heaven there, right? So, later on in Ezekiel, it says, Son of Man. Same talking about Ezekiel's temple. This is the place of my throne, the place of the soles of my feet, and where I will dwell with the sons of Israel forever. So who's dwelling with man on earth? He's here. So he's the temple, right? The Lamb. So there's a difference between the heavenly temple and him being the earthly temple in the last days when he shall come and return, right? At least that's what I got. So, and that's important to understand, because when it comes to the third temple, they say that this is Ezekiel's temple sometimes. And that's the reason why they're trying to say the reason why we should build a third temple, because there is a Ezekiel. So the Jew Ashkenazis are trying to build the third temple, and that's the picture of that. And they're very close, because y'all don't know if y'all know about the Trump coin. You know how they have the picture, gave him a coin and gave him even more coin, talking about he's King Cyrus and he's going to rebuild, be the one that actually rebuild the temple. I think even the president of Palestine, well, the current one, they just went through an election. So right now they're having problems because they got two that got voted the same. So they're supposed to share something strange going on. But on August 28th, they said they had a red heifer. So, they had to have a perfect red heifer to sacrifice. So they say they got one. And then, just August 15th, they start doing practices of burning a heifer. So we're very close to something. And that's what the big election is in Israel. It's all about, rebuilding the temple. So we got to make sure we understand, because in Thessalonians chapter 2, it says that day shall not come, let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come, except there shall come a falling away first, and that the son of sin be revealed, the son of perdition, who opposeth and exalteth himself above all that is called God or that is worship, so that he, as Yah, sitteth in the temple of Yah, showing himself that he is God. So there has to be a time where the Antichrist, son of perdition, however you want to call him, is going to sit in the temple. I never heard in history that has happened. So why would that be a bad thing if the temple was a good thing? Why would they allow, you know what I'm saying? There's something going on with this third temple that's not good. If he said we're the temple, why would he need to build another temple? See what I'm saying? So even when Yesher died, it said the veil was rent, right? It was torn. So why are we rebuilding the third temple? Don't sound like a good thing. I'm going to go through some of this real quick. But any questions about the buildings or architecture, anything? All right. I think I got enough time to go through this real quick now. Like I said, I was up to 7, so just don't have as many pictures. So stay with me. Stay with me. I should have put the pictures, the later ones, and that way keep people away. How was Yahushua's or Jesus' life, death, and resurrection changed from being celebrated at Passover to Easter? That was another thing when I went to seminary. I was like, how do we start doing all these eggs? And I guess it was Josh just opened my mind. I'm like, bunnies don't lay eggs. Give live birth. I'm like, I never thought about that growing up. I was like, something's odd about this. So we start looking at the history of Easter. I might have it in here. I'm not going to read all this. But, Ashtoreth was the Zidions. That's the group of people. Later on, the name was Astarte, Phoenicians, Ishtar, Babylonians. Rome also worshipped her through Aphrodite or Venus. The Celtics called it a story. And then you see that's easily turned to Easter. So you see how all this is the same God, or goddess, I should say. There's a thing called syncretism, where they actually take other people's religion and adapt it within their own society, kind of like Constantine did, right? Take other people's religion. And I think that's why some people even get confused about saying that the Bible's not real, because, the Egyptians, had stuff about the virgin birth and all this stuff before. But a lot of people don't realize that the old ancient Egyptian gods, they would just be totally different than the ones that Osiris and Horus, that was somebody different later on, early on. And they start changing. So even during this time, even when Yahusha was there with Mithra and other things, they start changing. They start adapting some of those stories. So they knew the Bible was around. They're right there in Israel. So they knew even before Yahusha came that Messiah was here. So you start seeing some of that similar text as well there. So, but the Easter story comes from the Sumerian legend, basically Tammuz. Y'all heard of Tammuz before, right? Tammuz, I guess that used to be his name, and his wife Ishtar. Basically, Tammuz died, and then Ishtar was like, "Oh, I'm going to get him." So she went to the underworld to try to find it. She basically was naked, bowed down, bowed low. She is judged, killed, and then hung on the display. A lot about like the Messiah, right? And basically the gods, the crops stopped growing because she was a goddess, right? And then the other gods, Enki, creates 2 creatures, one for plant life, one for water, descent to the underworld, and basically resurrects them, right? So for 6 months, they're able to come back as the sun, and then Ishtar wants to go follow him, and that basically is the cycle of what they call winter death and spring life. So when spring comes in, it's supposed to be life, winter is death. So when is Easter? It's around what season? Spring. Okay, and everybody starts talking about, like Halloween and death and evilness happens when? Fall, winter, October, November time-ish. So the resurrection of Egyptian Horus and the story of Mithra, who was worshipped at the springtime, and the tale of Dionysus, resurrected by his grandmother. Among these stories are prevailing themes of fertility, conception, renewal, descent into darkness, and the triumph of life over darkness, of good or evil. Very similar to Yahusha dying, right? So it's very easy to pull in similar aspects of both of these religions and kind of make that syncretism happen, right? And then Passover replaced in the Bible in the word Easter. So if you look in Acts 12:14, we got a King James, it will say the word will say Easter there. And New American Standard Version says, New American Standard Bible says Passover. So which one is it? Is it the same? You know, Pascha is the word in Greek for Easter, and it talks about, even in the definition, it says the meal, the day, the festival, special sacrifices connected with it. So it's kind of like still vague, right? Easter, Passover could be either. And when you start looking at the King James translation, there's only one place the same word is used for Easter. Why? It's just one place. You know, at all they could interchange it, right? It was the same thing. But even in the outline of the Bible, it talks about the 14th day. So we know that's very important because that the Passover had to be done on the 14th day of Abib or Aviv, or however you want to say it. It had to be done on that day. Oh, they say Nisan here, but you know, that's questionable. But then that is actually the biblical Passover, not Easter. Not going around getting eggs, bunnies. That has nothing to do with that. Right. So when we talk about quarter-decimanism, everybody heard that word before? That's basically was talking about the people who actually did Passover on this 14th day. That's what the Europeans called the Israelites that did it on the 14th day, or even some of the Gentiles that converted. They start doing it on the 14th day. And when we see in Leviticus 23:5, it says, in the 14th day of the first month at even is Yahuwah's Passover. That's right there in the Bible. So I don't see anything about Easter being after a certain day of the sun. There's nowhere in the Bible, right? So prior to 135, the predominantly Jewish culture, Christian church, so a lot of people don't know about Jewish Christians. There was a Christian people, there was Jewish people, then in the middle was Judah, the Nazarenes. That's what we're basically talking about. Church in Palestine, along with the churches of Asia, celebrated Easter on the 14th day of Nisan. Therefore, they were called quarter-decimians. Although they celebrated the Christian Pascha on the same day as the Jews celebrated Passover, they did not celebrate in the exact same way. They read the biblical Passover stories, but interpreted it in the Christian light. So they, talked about the sacrifice of the lamb, but then they talked about how Messiah was like we do, right? Basically what they were doing. And the place of the traditional Passover meal, they fasted until the early morning, basically being sorrowful, when they would break the fast with the Eucharist, basically the bread, and the wine. The fast was most a commemoration of the death of Yahusha as a true Passover lamb, and the victorious fast on behalf of the Jews who put him to death. So they were like kind of mourning for what they did, their people did. So that was that. It's very important because it talks about the quarter-decimal people all the time. So around 135, the Gentile leadership of Jerusalem changed and shifted celebration from Easter to Sunday, from the 14th. So they changed the date of Easter. They took it from the Passover and put it on the Easter as we know it. And if you know about who was the bishop of Jerusalem in 60 AD, it was the brother of Yahusha. It was James. He was martyred, And then 135 AD, a bishop named Marcus, who was a Gentile bishop, was placed over them. He became the first non-Israelite bishop of Jerusalem. And basically the city was renamed. I can't even say that, so I'm not even going to try. So, and then Justin Martyr, he was supposed to have been a big church father that talked a lot about it back in 155 CE or AD. He basically saying that he was okay, I'm cool with y'all doing Passover and the Jewish feast. It's not a problem. As long as you don't persuade people to say that that's the way for salvation. So that's not what we do, right? We don't say we have to do this for salvation. Right. This is more like justification. You're doing this because we do love him. We want to live for him. We want to do right. But, we're not even doing it right? We got all kind of calendars and dates and things. We're still trying to figure it out. Yeah. But if we die in this state, don't mean we're going to hell. It doesn't, right? Because our heart is where we need to be. That's right. So, it's not saying, that's what he's saying. He's saying, hey, it's not a big problem. Actually, we need to come together. This is Justin Martyr 155. He's saying we need to come together and, try to talk and try to get back on the right track. So you start hearing a slightly different tone from, the Nazarenes saying they do it on a regular basis. And now they kind of like, kind of compromising, but it's okay. You're going to start hearing the difference in that tone as we go into there, go further on. So 167 AD, so we start 135 AD. Now we at 135, then 155 was just a martyr. Now 167 AD, there was a bishop named Melito, and he had an Easter homily. And he talked about how all the sacraments and the Passover and all these things of the Israelite traditions have now been sent over to the Christian church, has transferred ownership. So now the Christian church owns these things, not the Israelites. Wow. He says all the possession of Israel, the people, the law, the holy city, the temple, and the covenant now belongs to the church. With the appearance of the reality Christ, the model, Israel, is useless, abolished, worthless, and made void. Basically, Israel is nothing now. This is 167 AD. And the second part of the homily deals with his death, Yahushua's death, sin, and talks about sin and death. But the third part of the homily basically talks about the Israelites killing their own God and how they're kind of like criminals. So these are some of the things he said. And an unprecedented murder has occurred. So he called it a murder in the middle of Jerusalem, in the city of thy law, in the city of the Hebrews, in the city of the prophets, in the city accounted just. So he made sure he cleared everything, make sure he talked about the right people. He who hung the earth is hanging. He who fixed the heavens has been fixed, and he who fastened the universe has been fastened to a tree. He sovereign has boon and sold it. The God has been murdered. The king of Israel has been murdered to death by the Israelite right hand. So basically saying the people kill their own people. They're terrible. Melito accused all of Israel, everybody, you know, he has some disciples that they're trying to fight and get them off, right? But he basically labeled all of them as murderers of Yahushua. And he accused them not merely of blindness, but of, how you say that word? Violence. Rejecting Jesus. Say it again. I can't say it. Y'all say it for me. Rejecting Jesus precisely because he was just and compassionate, joyfully celebrating the Passover where he died. Rejecting Christ, they rejected God, talking about us, their election as the people of God and our salvation. So basically lost their place. In doing so, they will earn God's rejection, the punishment of bitterness and death. The guilt of Jews is intensified further by the absence of any mention of Pilate. So he basically never talks about what the Romans did. Never talk about Pilate, never talk about their connections. It's all the Jews' fault. So that's when that anti-Semitic tones, you got to be Semitic, right, to be anti-Semitic. So we know the Ashkenazi are not even Semitic. So we got to be talking about us, right? We Semitic. So 196 AD, the victor of Rome, he's trying to basically he had a synod. So when you talk about synod, it's like a gathering, a conference. And it was in Palestine. He's basically trying to get them to agree on the date. It's kind of peaceful kind of thing. But only people there was the Gentile bishops. None of the Jewish bishops, the Israelite bishops were there. So they're saying that nobody knows if they were invited or not. But guess what the result is? They want to do it on Easter. Of course, right? It's like, yeah, you have all the people that actually is good with Rome, they're going to have it on the day they want to have it on, right? So, but even after that, there was still some tension, and then that's when we have the 325, right? Once again, that date. And this is the decree after they basically met. Basically it says 318 fathers were invited, 18 were from Palestine, but those 18 from Palestine were Gentile. There was no Israelite bishops there, even though they had some that was there at the time. So it says, decree all the brethren who are in the east, who formerly celebrated Easter with the Jews, who from ancient times have celebrated the feast at the same time as the Jews with us, and with all those who are from ancient times have celebrated the feast at the same time as us. I didn't know Easter and Passover was the same time. So where did that come from? Right? They started kind of like, and they say ancient times. So this 325, basically Yahushua just died at 30, about 200 years ago. So it's not ancient times, right? So what are they probably talking about? They're probably talking about some of those pagan things that we talked about earlier, right? Those ancient times, right? So this is Constantine's letter. It's very long, but he's very interesting. He starts basically dogging down a lot of the Israelites. But he says, I should start with some of the red text. It was declared to be partially unworthy for the holiness of all his festivals, to follow the customs, the calculation of the Jews. So it says the Jews, they don't know what they're doing. So who have soiled their hands with the most fearful of crimes, who's talking about basically killing Yahushua, and whose minds were blinded, basically saying the same thing as that bishop from like 100 years ago was saying. And rejecting their customs, we have transmitted, basically transferred to our descendants the legitimate mode of celebrating Easter, which we have observed from the time of the Savior's passion to the present day, which is not right. We ought not, therefore, to have anything in common with the Jews, for the Savior has shown us another way. Another way, so different than the Bible. Then later on it talks about we desire dearest brethren, to separate ourselves from these detestable company of the, we're not detestable. Justin Martin said it was okay, now we're detestable. You gotta get away from us. It would be still your duty not to tarnish your soul by communicating with such wicked people. The tone is changing, right? We see how that tone is now. We wicked people, and it says, and he desired, but talking about y'all, he desired to establish only one Catholic church. Now they basically putting the stamp saying now it's the Catholic church. It's no longer about the Nazarenes, nothing about Israelites. It's all about the Catholic church. That on the same day should some, remember we said that they were fasting on that day. So he said on the same day, why would some be fasting and some be feasting? We should all be doing the same thing. We should be eating. And basically says not have anything in common with the murderers of our Lord, and we should have nothing in common with the Jews. Basically, the evil people, stay away from them. So who are we talking about? So almost done in 341 AD, the Synod of Antioch. So we're talking about, a couple of years later. And it says, whoever shall presume to set aside the decree of the Holy and Great Synod, which was assembled at Nicaea, so talking about what was basically said, what they agreed to doing, in the presence of the pious Emperor Constantine. So, this is after him. So it says, basically going back to what he said. Beloved of God, concerning the holy and sanctuary feast of Easter, it shall be obstinately persist in opposing what was then rightly ordained. Let them be excommunicated and cast out of the church. So now they're saying, you getting out. We don't even want you. So it started, the Jews pulling in Gentiles. Now the Gentiles are kicking out the Jews, the Israelites, right? This is said concerning the laity, but if anyone who proceed in the church, whether he be bishop or presbyter or deacon, shall presume after this decree to exercise his own private judgment to the subversion of the people and the disturbance of the churches by observing Easter at the same time with the Jews, the Holy Synod decrees that he shall thenceforth be an alien from the church, basically kicked out, as one who only heaps sins upon himself, he's sinful, but who is also cause of destruction, subversion to many. It disposes not only such persons themselves from their ministry, so if you minister something, you're out, you're no longer part of it. So, I'm going to stop there. But this also, starts getting, that was the last one. But basically, it talks about there that it's even, you now renounce, you actually say this creed. You have to say it out loud. That you no longer part of the 11 breads, sacrifices of the lambs from Hebrew, everything Jewish, everything's bad, and I'm going to say this decree, say this over and over, so I truly believe it. And absolutely everything Jewish is wrong. I'm going to keep on saying this because this is a creed that I have to repeat. And if I do this, the trembling of Cain, the leprosy of Gehazi should cleave to me. I'm basically pronouncing curse if I do these things on myself. So also remember the church, right? Same time the church was built. Where was it built? On top of Aphrodite, the Easter, going back connected to Ishtar, and the disciples even kept Passover. So if they kept it in the Old Testament, they kept it in the New Testament, why won't we keep it now?
Good question.
What changed? All right. But that's it. I'm going to stop there, and then next time, I'll finish this.
Can we give the man of y'all hand? Hallelujah. Hallelujah. The most interesting thing is that they had a problem with us then. It ain't no change today. They still got a problem with us. But what's most interesting to me is that they thought they was in control. And the Most High was in control. In Romans 11, he said, I blinded Israel, that the name of Israel would be, what? Remember no more? He blinded us in order to graft in the Gentiles. But then what did he say? What did he say? And then what did he say? Paul said, has Yah forgotten his people? Forbid. You are important. Why? Because you are the foundation of the earth. That's how important. We was in a conversation the other day with some other people, and they was wanting to know, what is it that we do at Seventh Day? What is it? What's the difference that what we're not doing in the regular church. I said, well, in the regular church, they focus more on the religion. And in this ministry and in this assembly, we focus on the culture and the assembly of the people. And we focus more on putting things in its rightful perspective instead of taking scripture out of context, keeping things in context. So, that's the difference of what we do. And, I've never met so many people who been in church all of their lives and been functioning in church all their life and don't know nothing about what they say they believe. That's because they don't properly teach like they should teach what this thing is truly about. But I thank the Most High for you, man of Yah. I thank him how he's dealing with you and how he's using you to speak to the masses. I need you to check your calendar for January the 4th, though. I want you to kick it off. January the 4th, part 2. All right, is that all right?
Sounds like it. Check calendar.
Hallelujah. Listen, is there anyone have any words that they want to speak? I know it's time. Yeah.
If Sister Douglas will come up real quick, and also Sister Marsha and Brother Mary. I know that we had a lot of losses in the family, parents. So if y'all don't mind, can we just cover them in prayer real quick? Can we just come up and just circle within them so we can just pray for them? Oh yes, I didn't see the daughter in there as well. Yeah, y'all come up to y'all family. So family, y'all come on in the middle. I don't want to leave y'all out. Just, if y'all don't mind, just lay a hand on somebody. Let's pray. Dear Yah, we thank you for all the things you've done in our life. We thank you for you allowing us to be your people. We thank you for Yahusha dying on the cross for our sins, and also ascending back unto you to take care of our needs and be an advocate for us. And we stand here with these families in love. You said, weep with those who weep and rejoice with those who rejoice. So right now we all have a sorrowful heart because our brothers and sisters here are going through. But we know that out of every great life that you're going to call us home to be with you. And we thank you for the time that we had to share and to spend with our families. And we just ask you just to be with us as our hearts are healing at this critical time. I know how it is to lose a parent, and even though we're happy that they're in a better place with you, we still miss them down here on earth. So we ask you to be with these families, be with us as a whole, for we love them and we grieve with them as they grieve. As they hurt, we hurt. But we know in the end that you will just call us all back to be together with you if we live a righteous life. So help us to live that life. Help us to support one another as a family in love of who you are and love of one another. And we thank you for the strength that you're going to give them through these days, through this time. And we just ask you all these things in your mighty name of Yahushua HaMashiach. Amen.
Hallelujah. Hallelujah. Thank y'all so much. Dealing with a lot of the family. A lot of them everybody's not on the same level, and they say, I look at you and how you're handling things. It ain't nothing but Yahuwah, y'all. He just keeps me numb. We went to view the body today, and the first funeral home that had her messed her up. Yeah, she don't even look like herself, and we're gonna pursue on the legal side. We went and spoke to some lawyers in Raleigh, and we're going to handle our business. That's the problem with us when it comes to legal. We like to stay away from that stuff. But I tell you, if our people would be smarter and know who they are, we'll be further along than where we are. And I think that we get taken advantage of because they don't think that we're that educated enough to pursue that type of stuff. But y'all keep praying for us, keep praying for our family as we enter into this new season. The Most High is getting ready to do some great things, not only for this assembly, but for abroad, for all of us. I truly believe that. I truly believe that he's going to do it. He said he's going to do it, and I believe it is so. Hallelujah. Listen, at the end of every broadcast, we like to promote black businesses. Y'all know black businesses, put it out there, and let's become one. Let's keep that dollar in the community, circulating in the community. If you've been inspired to open up a black business, let us know about it. We want to promote it. We want to help. We want to push it. That's what we want to do. And we like to promote books. If you are an author and you write, please let us know so that we can promote that book. There is a book that's out there by John Ogilvy. He's a European gentleman. He put out several books, but one of the books that I'm very familiar with is the Spanish Inquisition. Benea Israel, he brought this to my attention last year sometime, but it is a phenomenal book. If you try to get that book, it's like $65,000 for that book, but you can get it. You can actually get it on PDF for free. Go to PDF and type in Spanish Inquisition. Download that book because it's about you. It's about your history, and it ties in with biblical history. So those are things that are very important for me as a black man, or as a Yehuda or Yehudi. It's very important. So I admonish you all that are listening on Facebook and on YouTube to go out and cop that book. Take out your phones, go to Google and type in John Ogilvy, Spanish Inquisition, and find out about your people. Am I leaving out anything, honey? Okay. Huh? Oh, my mother's service is Wednesday, to those that are listening, at Living Waters Baptist Church in High Point, 1300 Brentwood Drive in the city of High Point. The viewing is at 12:30 and the service is at 1. Now, they're expecting a church service, but I'm going to have a Hebrew service. And so I'm pulling out all the stops. I'm putting a whole lot of people that are awoke and putting them to work in this service. Although it's going to be mixed with a lot of people on the other side of the tracks with Christianity and everything, but for the most part, you're going to see us, and you're going to see us at work. So I just want to again say thank you to all your prayers, all your support of Seventh-day Harvest Teaching Ministry. Again, this will be on YouTube, so you can go back to see what you did on YouTube, or even on Facebook. It'll be on Facebook as well. And again, I thank y'all so much. Next week would be Obadiah Yahoo or Ronaldo Wade from Kingdom Harvest in Charlotte. He'll be here on next week to give us a word, to break bread with us. And the week following that would be my better half, Prophetess Ezekiel Douglas. So again, bruh, phenomenal job on today. Phenomenal job. Phenomenal job. I'm gonna have to get some of that stuff. It's phenomenal. You good? You good? Dooms, you good? Okay. I know Elder good. Y'all good? Bro, it's good to see you. You wearing that, bro. Yeah, you wearing that. I'm trying to get mine. Look, I try to comb that joker out and the naps come popping and everything. Yeah, I got to get that, bro. Yeah, that's what it is. Well, we thank y'all so much again. Thank you, Coochie. Thank you, Coochie. Thank you. Thank y'all so much. I really appreciate y'all. I'm looking forward. I got you on calendar, bro. Look, when y'all come, look, it's all yours. Do whatever it is that y'all do. Do whatever it is that y'all do. We in, bro. All right. Love y'all. And as we stand, Dale, I'm sorry. Thank you so much, man, for coming. This is my godson. Thank y'all. Thank you for so much. I know you got a concert you got to do today. but thank you so much for coming out. As we stand to be dismissed, I'm going to ask Ark if he would to come back to dismiss us.
I do appreciate my Wake Forest family. I mean, Wake Forest. Wake County family for coming out here. I appreciate that. Let us pray. We thank you for all you're doing in our lives, and we ask you to just continue to be with us even as we depart from here. We ask you to just to be with us in our quiet time, in our time of mourning, or even our time at work, or stress, or pain, or anything we're going through. Help us know that you are there and you are Yah, and we can always count on you. And we'll say this in Yahushua's name. We'll say hallelujah. Hallelujah.